Welcome to the New 50, where your host, Naja Hayward, has candid conversations with renowned authors on topics from menopause, money, men, and more. Join us as we explore this life chapter with wisdom, humor, and real stories of life after 50, and redefine what it means to be 50 and fabulous. Stay tuned.
Hollywood veteran Tina Lifford has played over 100 characters in her long-standing career, including, most notably, the vivacious Aunt Vi on the critically acclaimed television drama Queen Sugar. Tina has starred opposite Hollywood greats including Clint Eastwood, Jennifer Lopez, and Bruce Willis. Outside of acting, Tina is the author of The Little Book of Big Lies, released by HarperCollins and chosen by Forbes as a must-read to make your year the best year yet. Tina is an entrepreneur, a visionary, and thought leader in the field of inner fitness. As the strategist and architect behind the Inner Fitness Project, she brings deep wisdom, personal experience, and respect for the human condition that allows her to engage people in the process of internal transformation, healing, and resilience building.
I believe that we can contribute to a better world.
As an author and speaker, Tina fosters the idea that we can all live life well and thrive. Stay to the end to learn more about Tina's upcoming project, Self 365. And now, Tina Lifford.
Tina, I am so happy to have you. Thank you for joining me today. You have no idea how excited I am because, first of all, this is podcast number 1. And so there's a reason that you are our first, and it's because I've adored you in so many ways for so long. It started as Aunt Vi, but it grew into so much more because I really started to learn who you are as a human being on this planet. I'm fascinated by you, I'm inspired by you, and I cannot wait for us to jump in today. So I kind of wanted to, so thank you for being here.
Thank you, Naja. I'm
and
happy
you look
to be
fabulous
here.
Because we never know, what are you going to give us? What are you going to give us? Which divifiedness are you going to give us? So today is like every other. It is absolutely wonderful.
It's true.
So this podcast is really all about the new 50, right? I mean, we're not your grandmother's 50 whatsoever. You know, the 50, the 60s, the 70s. It's just a new generation of how we live, how we be. On your Instagram, you have such a multifaceted career that generationally is very unique how you identify. And on your Instagram, it's listed as, inner fitness is your first. Then you have Aunt Vi as an actor. Then you have author. So when we look at identity in this world that we live in, you're an entrepreneur, a spiritual guide, an actor. You have all of these roles. How do you identify within yourself on this planet?
Yeah, that's a great question, Naja. And my answer is I allow myself to be all that I am without becoming attached to any label. I'm not interested in labels. I'm interested in using this lifetime to unfold into the iteration or blueprint that is inside of me. That's my purpose. That's my calling. And if that means picking up one identity and thinking that that's who I am and what I want to do and running with it and then discovering that, no, there's more to me. So I keep going for the more that I am, never being attached to any one thing, willing to drop them all at the drop of a hat if becoming attached to them loses some part of me.
I've been reading your book. I've been listening to your book. I love listening to your book, and I want to talk more about it in a little bit. But there were a couple of things based on what you're saying that were so fascinating to me. One, you've been in this is not new to you. You didn't decide one day, I'm going to go into personal development. God gave you that as a young girl. Like, it was infused in you beyond, it was who you're meant to be. What do you say in your acknowledgments? Your friends know that, that they're going to get the personal development Tina, right? Whether they want it or not. And I said, oh my goodness, yes, I understand all too well. I understand all too well. And I love that, and they have to buy in, otherwise,
And I'm never proselytizing. I'm not out here trying to enroll you. That's not what I'm doing. But I am being myself fully. This is how I think. This is how I roll. This is how I respond. So if it's a fit for you, let's hang. If it's not a fit for you, maybe we can find a, patch of ground where we can have a little bit of fun for as long as you can tolerate me or I can tolerate you. But I am not trying to be, I am being.
What's so interesting about that, and I want to send my condolences because I know you lost your mom recently. And the beautiful thing about really being in your world definitely over these last several months, and seeing you as a caregiver for your mom. And I want to talk more about that because this is the age and the stage where many of us are going to be doing more of that. This picture right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's me and my grandmother, and she's 94. She has Alzheimer's dementia, and I'm her primary caregiver. So it was one area that I really identified with you. But one thing that you've done, and it's miraculous, it's inspiring, and I think it's necessary for any of us who are caregivers, is in your book, you say one of the core driving factors of your personal development was if and when that time came that you were going to lose your mom, you wanted to be able, you had the foresight. Like, I was like, how did you have the foresight to know you would want to deal with it in a certain way? And I saw your recent video letting us know that she had passed. And I cannot tell you how beautiful it was, because it wasn't weepy because there was reason to weep. It wasn't angry because there could have been reason to be angry. It was in gratitude and in peace. So can you tell me, where did that, is this just like God made you this way? Tell me more, please, because how do more of us get there?
We're all made this way. We're all made in whatever way you were saying this way. We all have more to us than we have engaged with. And a really simple framework, and I talk about it in the book, and you actually can get a really great sense of what I'm about to share with you on a YouTube video that I have. Just put my name in, Tina Lifford Dream. And there's a 5-minute film there that I did that speaks to the 3 selves. And this framework gives us the notion that inside of us, there's not just this image that we see in our mirror. There's a very nuanced, composition of thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And together, they impact our actions and our reactions. And instead of seeing ourselves as this one monolithic self, the film and the idea of the 3 selves offers that there's a range to us, and that range is evolutionarily based. And there's the part of us that is the surviving self. We know that part. It's always in worry, doubt, and fear. It is the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism that is downloaded, and our nervous system has been built on that fight, flight, or freeze since organisms or life started. So that's a very real part of us. And then there's the part that I call the thriving self. And the thriving self is the part of us that can hope, that can dream, that can actually penetrate the fear of the surviving self and make room for that surviving self to soften in its rigidity and its automatic fears and grow into more of the hope, enthusiasm, possibility, compassion, openness, visionary and envisioning and imagining our lives that comes with the frontal cortex. That's what science is telling us, that there's, as the brain developed, it started with that reptilian brain, and then, we now have and the limbic system, and now we have the frontal cortex, which is where we can sit inside of ourselves and objectively observe ourselves. That is a phenomenal adaptation that allowed this organism that is the human being to not just be run by the past. We can objectively observe ourselves, and in doing so, begin to go, oh, well, that's me, and I can choose otherwise. This is how I have done it, and I can choose otherwise. We have the ability to see ourselves and to choose how we want to be going forward.
Choose?
And then the infinite self, I just need to say, and the infinite self is literally the universe living inside of us. It is God, it is whatever name you want to use for that higher power, but it is taking up space inside of us. So that means we have more power, more capability, more beingness than we give ourselves credit for.
You know what I love about what you're saying is, hearing you speak, it could feel almost like I said earlier, how do I achieve that? And you said, no, it's in all of us, right? It's in every single one of us. So I have two questions. One is, how did that help you prepare for your mom's transitioning? And two, first, how did that help you prepare for your mom's transitioning? Because it truly is absurd. Was there a sadness? How does that work for you with the transition? Because she was a part of your everything.
Yeah. So one of the gifts of getting to know ourselves, because that's really the work that I do, as part of the Inner Fitness Project. It is all about reframing and revisiting the idea of self. And when you begin to see that higher power, that range of the three selves lives inside of you, it elevates our sense of self. It elevates us to be in partnership with how life is evolving for whatever life's agenda is, right? And so for me, at the Inner Fitness Project, our commitment is to take self, and through the lens of self, take these big concepts and understand them in a way that truly resonates. So to answer the question, how did that allow me to deal with my mom? There's a lot of little layers to it, but I'm going to, from the work of Inner Fitness, I'm going to say that one of my favorite prompts to share with the world is this, that life is happening. Life is not happening to us. Life is happening. And so if you just think about how the universe was birthed and the ways in which it has gone through this age and that age and keeps discovering itself from within itself, we are an extension of that apparatus, that movement or process. And so the prompt that I offer is life is simply bumping into life, creating more life.
I like to say life is life.
If you are,
life is
lifing,
yes.
you know, and if God is creative, if the universe is creative, and you are creative as an extension of that, then it makes all the sense in the world that when life bumps into you, because there's a lot of chaos out here, right? That how you respond as a creative being is going to create something.
Would you call that manifestation?
So manifestation tends to be connected with an intentionality. Okay. So, you know, I want or I intend this or that for my life. And then because of the mystical connection between thought and reality, people can consciously and intentionally create things in their lives. So you could call that a degree of manifestation, but I'm really talking about being in a proactive, conscious partnership with life. So that when you don't manifest, you know, some of the heinous things that take place in our lives, you don't manifest rape, right? You don't manifest. Sometimes stuff just moves into your space and bumps into you. What we all should know, and a way that we can enjoy this life more, is to know that when anything enters our lives, there is a part of us, you can call it the infinite self, that has the ability to choose how we respond to those circumstances. And when we know that, we begin to exercise, you know, build the inner strength to actually respond in ways that create a life that we want, that empowers us, that moves us beyond our pain or navigates us through it, as opposed to leaving us, you know, in the dirt, feeling like a victim and having that one moment turn into our life.
We get to choose. We get to choose. I love that. Choose. You know, that's it's right. So interesting because, yes, I'm like a big Instagram fan of Tina Lifford. Okay, so you had this one video where you had a bag of McDonald's and you had just fed mommy. And I said, I loved it because one thing that can happen to anyone who's in any position, particularly a spiritual position, and you have people that are quote unquote following you, is there's a pedestal, right? We put people on a pedestal. And so we have this expectation of what being a spiritual being looks like. And you humanized it with a little bag of McDonald's saying, this is a moment. This was self-care for me. And tell me a little bit about the integration of humanness and everything that you just shared, of just allowing yourself to have those moments of going to McDonald's because that's the energy that you have.
Yeah. So let's make sure that what was happening in that video is clear. That McDonald's bag was for my mom.
No, I didn't think you did.
No. I haven't put a McDonald's burger in my mouth since I was probably in high school or junior high. But my mom loves their food. And at 91, with Alzheimer's, I could not care less about ideas of what should or shouldn't go in my mother's body. My mom is exiting, whether it is tomorrow or 10 years from now. And the quality of her life, her smile, her feeling, satisfied by food, because we actually discovered that it was harder and harder to find things that mommy wanted to eat. She really liked old school cooking, ham hocks and greens. Well, we cooked the greens, but a lot of the neck bones and rice and all of that we grew up on is not the way any of us cook. And so mommy's eating world and eating choices got smaller because she couldn't go in the kitchen and do it herself. So if she wants some McDonald's,
Mommy's gonna get McDonald's,
and it's gonna make her happy, I'm not even gonna think twice about that. And Naja, you say something that I think is really important. You mention like the reconciling the spiritual with the everyday human. And as I said at the very beginning, I don't even identify as a spiritual person. I just am 1000% committed to the journey that I am on. And I'm not trying to elevate, myself above or compare or any of that. Tina Lifford is intending to get her work and her purpose fulfilled in my short lifetime. That's it.
You know what's interesting?
And walking the
No.
sorry.
No, please.
No. And walking our talk is that's the only thing I identify with. Is that I walk my talk.
You start your book off in a way talking about your brother and the challenge that he went through with his addiction. And from what I understand, there was some judgment in the beginning with you around that, right?
Absolutely.
Because it was so opposite from who you are in general. And so, but you so beautifully talk about the moment where you really came to love your brother for exactly where he is. And I feel like we're living in a time where we just really need to start loving people for exactly where they are, because we're all in such different phases. What did that take? What was that for you?
Well, yeah, I'm loving this conversation, and your questions are so thoughtful. So I could love my brother more. I mean, I didn't love him more. I loved him better.
Yeah.
Right? The love that I have for my love, particularly where my family is concerned, it doesn't waver. So it's not about loving more, it's loving better. And the more I came to know myself, and what that looked like was, the more I took myself out of the cubicles, the little boxes that I had placed myself in. And those boxes were, unbeknownst to me, subconsciously, those boxes were strategies for keeping myself safe and on track. And so there was, when we put ourselves in boxes, when we follow the recipe that is handed to us, whether it's the recipe for success, the recipe for love, the recipe for whatever, when we are following it, particularly to the letter, if you look underneath what you will find is fear. You will find the fear that if you don't follow it to the letter, you won't get what you want. And the idea of not getting what we want terrifies us, because the reaching for what we want gives us purpose and placement. It's like we know where we are because this is who we are, and these are the things we want, and these are the kinds of people, and so on and so on and so on. And so we actually box ourselves in with these commitments to who we are that have been handed down or curated by us, but never challenged.
And in return, we box other people. And in return, we box others, right? And it's only through, I love what you're saying, it's only through penetrating or removing or blowing up those walls of the box that we can start to allow others to be themselves. And it's so interesting how parallel so much of our lives are. You know, your grandmother, your mother, my grandmother, your brother, my brother, addiction. And for so long, I wouldn't talk about it. And I said it wasn't because I was ashamed of it, but I just, you know, it was so different than my life and what I desired for my life and what I had a vision of what my family was supposed to look like.
And how you judged addiction, and how you judged, you know, addiction and what that meant, and what that possibly meant about your family and your parents, and just, you know, and how trifling, you know, that said your brother was. I mean, there's a whole bunch of judgments that are there if we tell ourselves the truth, right? But here, Naja, here is the realization that blew my mind and continues to blow my mind. That, and actually there is a doctor out there by the name of Gabor Mate who is doing some amazing work around addiction. And he says it so succinctly. He says, addiction is not the problem. It is the solution. Because the average person who is struggling with an addiction had feelings and overwhelm inside that they did not know how to manage. And that drug gave them an answer, gave them relief that they couldn't find anywhere else. I know that's true for my brother. And so in a society that is so ignorant, and I don't say that as an attack. It's just, we're just now beginning to even value the self in a way that has science actually pouring minds and billions of dollars into understanding ourselves. So here we are without tools, carrying incredible loads of stress and trauma, and being told, you know, what cubicle we are supposed to be in, and not having room to say, I'm confused, I feel like I don't fit. There's a belonging issue, there's a shame issue, there's this thing happened to me and I never was able to talk to anybody about it issue. There's so much that people who are struggling with addiction and not mental illness that is, you know, the diagnosed kind, but the internal disconnect from self and worth that makes life hard.
Do you think it's the vocalization that becomes the first step to healing, to be able to vocalize or articulate the pain, because so much of it is really centered around shame? Do you think vocalization, I'm just thinking as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, I know in the moments where I was able to first articulate a pain, but then without shame or despite shame, say something about it was when I was able to do my own personal healing.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. I think naming things gives us it gives our internal self that is always afraid. It gives us placement. It's like, oh, that's what that is. That's what I'm feeling. I'm not crazy. There's this thing. It's called, there's this thing. It's called fear. There's this memory that keeps haunting me, that causes me to run from myself. Being able to see and name, in the work we do, we say, see, look, see, and accept. And the way we can actively support ourselves is to be willing to look. That means just have our eyes open to discover what is causing the dis-ease, or the fact that we are even in dis-ease. Just be willing to see that.
Just be willing to see that. It's the first step. And your work with inner fitness.
Just be willing.
And we're going to talk about inner fitness because you have a program that, FYI, I will be signing up for. And I know my audience will too, because I'm telling them all, like, this is something that we need in our life. So we'll talk more about the 365 project in a bit. But I want to jump a little bit into, because I'm a publisher and we help people publish all kinds of books, and we really support them in the self-publishing process. So your beautiful book started off as a self-published project before it went and miraculously, divinely, I should say, you went and met with HarperCollins. So tell me a little bit, if you don't mind, about that self-publishing process and why was it important for you to put your book out there at the time in a way that you were even willing to self-publish it? There was something motivating for you.
Yeah. The motivating factor was my heart. It just wouldn't leave me alone. And I say often, so I self-published in 2013, I think it was. And it took me 5 years to write that little book. And I'm telling you, I'm writing, I literally have to submit my draft this week for the next book that's coming out with HarperCollins. But when things don't leave us alone, when they won't leave us alone, we have to acknowledge that there is something there. There's an engagement there that is asking us to partner with it. And I will tell you, oh my gosh, there were so many times in writing that book, because I don't identify as a writer, right? And so I didn't know anything about writing. I didn't know anything about the writing process. I had a girlfriend who was a novelist, a rather well-known novelist, and she had this discipline of getting up and giving her, 4 to 6 hours every single day. I didn't know anything about that. And I was constantly in some, game with myself trying to get this done. But I consistently engaged. And then, when I got the book done, it was like, well, I don't have a publisher. And again, if you're following that is yours to do, you have to follow.
And the
Right?
things that you don't know will come to you. You're like, how did I know that? Or
Yes.
how did you come
Yes.
into my life? Right? It's like all of a sudden these things start to unfold because because you listened to the nudge, because you were obedient to the nudge, and you said, I'm going to put one step in front of the other. I love that.
Which confirms the notion that your God is not out there. Your God is in
Please say that
here.
again, Tina, please. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
it confirms, it highlights, it underscores that the notion of God off in the sky someplace does not serve the God that is literally inside of every single cell and breath. And to really sort of put a cherry on what you're saying, when you say that you take the step and the next step is provided. I did not know what I was doing. I got it self-published. I didn't realize, and I will tell you this to anyone who wants to write a book, writing the book is maybe 50% of it. I think it might be more like a quarter of it, because the real deal is who's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a plan for that, then you will have, like I did, a very good book sitting on my shelf.
What I love about you saying this is, and you're Tina Lifford, right? You're on Vi. And so it requires publicity and marketing and support and people knowing, and you having conversations and being courageous and and getting visible. And so I love you saying that, because it's one of the things that a lot of our clients deal with is the visibility part. Right. And
well, now, mind you, when I wrote the book in 2000, when I self-published in 2013, I had a career as an actress, but not the profile that Aunt Vi gave me. And here's something even more important for me to share, because it really speaks to you're saying that you just have to, I'm going to use the word trust the nudges, okay? Because I didn't know what to do with that book. So that was 2013, 14. I wind up being, hired to play Aunt Vi in 2016. That's 2 years later. In 2018, that's 4 years later, I open my email box and there is my now editor from HarperCollins in my email box saying, a friend gave me your book and I'd like to talk to you about republishing it through HarperCollins. I didn't go, my soul was looking. I was always looking and always marketing from the soul.
And wasn't that person, and that wasn't even a friend of yours, they saw you at a talk for your book, right? It was so serendipitous exactly right. How it all happened, because I will completely disagree with you about you being a writer. You're a phenomenal writer, because you really touch the heart, and you speak from the heart, which allows you to connect with my heart. And you tell the truth, but you tell it in such an eloquent way, and your stories are human. And so I think you're a phenomenal writer, and I truly enjoy. It's one of those books if you don't have the book, by the way, Amazon. What is your favorite place for people to buy your book, Tina? Okay, anywhere. Excellent.
Anywhere is my favorite place, because reading the book is the best gift that you can give yourself. I wrote that book with the deep felt desire that every page offer the reader something.
And you accomplished your goal. And my recommendation is get the audiobook, because you get Tina's voice, and Tina has that, come on, this is on by. She got the voice, You've got the voice. Speaking of, I would like to talk about, when we look at you publicly, you're vibrant in a way that we all want a piece of it, and when we talk about the new 50, we have to look at the world wants women to dim our light as we get older. We call this mid-age. There's all these words that we use that in and of themselves dim us if we allow it. But that's just not what you've allowed for your own life. And you played a role on Vi, she was sexy, and she was a sex symbol, but she was also the favorite aunt. She was ambitious, but she was compassionate. She was a Black woman in this world, but she was global in her, everything about her, right? And so I see first of all, how do you identify with Aunt Vi personally? As a woman, how do you identify with her? Because you didn't play Aunt Vi, you were Aunt Vi.
Yeah, well, as an actress, the aim is to be, not to play, right? And the actors that I admire, I forget that they are acting. And so that's what makes the craft a joy and a skill. I don't identify with Aunt Vi. Well, we'll put it like this. One of the beautiful things about Queen Sugar and the opportunity to play Aunt Vi, and there were a number of things, and I'm going to share at least two of them with you. So one is again, if we take our higher power out of the sky and begin to leave room for the idea that there is a partnership, that we're not here just willy-nilly, that our bodies represent arms and legs for our higher power. If you think of it like that, then your urges, your desires, if they're not driven by your surviving self, if they're driven by a higher part of yourself, then they are in concert with that made you, right? And from that perspective, all praises to Ava and Oprah, but you got to ask yourself, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Or is there a partnership that our individual lives wound up intersecting so that we all could experience the power of the divine living inside of us? They did not give me that role. I honor that they hired me, but the vision has been on my vision board for decades.
Yeah, this is what you're talking about. What I would love for everyone who's listening right now is translate what Tina is talking about with her role as Aunt Vi into your life, because we become passive participants in our life, thinking, and we tiptoe around thinking we owe people and what you're saying is such an empowered statement that I think we as humans, we as women, particularly as Black women, have got to hear. So please continue.
Yeah, so when you own that you are in a partnership with the highest energy in the universe, and you take honor in that partnership, and you name the things that your heart is talking to you about, you name them. You go so far as to create a reality for them by writing them down for the first time. Your dreams, the first time they become concrete is when you take them out of the ethers and you place them someplace. Put them on a piece of paper that makes them concrete. You can go to that piece of paper and go, oh, yes, this is my dream. And by doing so, something works with you. And that's the case for everyone. And so if you're not getting what you want in your life, there are probably 3 reasons. Disbelief, not writing what you want down, and having an expectation that it should be easier and faster, and because it isn't, you give up. So Aunt Vi was a manifestation of, honest to goodness, in November of 2015, I wrote in my journal that I wanted to be number 3 or 4 on the call sheet. That's the roster that actors work from. Number 1 is the lead. And then from there, you see what the order of character importance is. And I wanted to be number 3 or 4 because I didn't want the workload that goes with number 1. But I was specific. I wanted to be 3 or 4 on the call sheet. I wanted to work in a, really well-oiled ensemble. I wanted to be a part of an award-winning or critically acclaimed show. And I wanted to, in the midst of this profound ensemble, add something so undeniable that my cream would rise to the top. It's all written down. So to be living it isn't just about me and my dedication to walking the talk, but me and what was calling, and me leaning into that, even though I had nothing that could give me the certainty that it would unfold.
Tina, can you tell us, when we're in that space of, I'm just going to say manifestation, even though it's not exactly what you're talking about, I'm going to just use that word so for us to have a word. But when you're in that space, right, you created this board, you knew exactly what you wanted. You wanted to be 3 or 4. It was clear, and you created it. What do you recommend for us, for anyone who may be able to get into that space of manifestation, but then what happens when the doubt starts kicking in, or the fear, or the worry, or the thing that all of a sudden puts us out of the frame of creation and into, just like, why me, imposter syndrome?
Yep. It's a great question, Naja. And here's what I would share with you. That's why we started with the 3 selves, and again, I recommend that you go and watch the film on YouTube, Tina Lifford Dream. It's like a 5-minute, 34-second film. So when you understand that the surviving self, driven by worry, doubt, and fear, driven by doubt and othering and disconnect, that part of us is real. It lives in us. And it's not to be vilified. It's not to be, criticized. It's to be understood. And when you understand that, you understand that you will have doubt. There's a piece of research that everyone should know. The science says that there's somewhere between we think somewhere between 12,000 and 50 or 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of that thinking is negative, and 95% of that thinking is repetitive. And if you really think about your life and you think about driving to work and getting into the car and going unconscious and then winding up where you are, but if you think about what your mind was doing from the moment you left your driveway to your destination, there was a lot of negative rumination going on. There's a lot of, old, unresolved, I should have told them this, I should have said that, shoulders shaking, neck,
That's exactly how I look
rolling,
in the
car. Just a lot of pissosity. And when we can say, well, that is natural for the surviving self. That is what we default to when we aren't consciously cultivating our thriving self.
Yeah.
Right? And so now you step into a more aware partnership
Conscious
with yourself.
cultivation. I love that word. Conscious cultivation.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my challenges is I've been doing this work for a long time, and I know when I'm on my track, I can create anything. And then there are these moments in time. I feel like I'm in a coaching session with you right now, Tina, so hold on. There are these moments in time where all of a sudden this old script comes back. Very old script, and I have to talk to myself, and I have to say, where did that come from? The thing that I have is a knowingness to have the conversation and to not make it wrong, and to very, very much allow it to be my partner to say, hey, what's happening? I don't know. I don't know. I need to chill for a second. Are you sure? Because I got you. Baby girl, I got so it's a conversation. And but the conscious cultivation is exactly what you're talking about. It's none of this happens unconsciously. None of this happens if we're not mindful. And I think that's the first step, is just becoming conscious and mindful of it, right?
Yeah. And I'll share with you, and I believe it is chapter number 10 in the Little Book of Big Lies. The book is broken down into questions. It is the question, did you think you were done with that?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And so what I would submit as part of what is going on or at play when you feel like you have addressed this chronic issue, you've gotten to a place of strength, you feel like it is done. And then from out of nowhere, here it shows up again. Yes, exactly. And here's what I submit. I submit that our greatest, purpose is to honor the self, because and know that self really is one with that created all. And when we forget that, we experience life as a human being. And when it comes to our really difficult moments, when that initial event happened that knocked us off center, that left us disconnected from an affirmed sense of self, unfortunately, because we didn't have the information, we began to engage with that event through negative rumination. And without, accurate coaching, that negative rumination winds up also attacking ourselves. Because even when you think you are moving forward, you wind up, beating yourself up because you're responding in that same old way. You don't like how you're feeling. You're calling how you're feeling wrong. You find yourself at odds with yourself, and you feel like there's something wrong with you. And in truth, every single time that the wound revisits, it's there because we truly have elevated, and our test is, can you interact with this discomfort from love?
That's beautiful.
And to the degree that you pass that test, you will elevate even more.
Can you interact with this in love? I love that.
Yeah. With love of self, no attack of self, no criticism. Just, can you honor yourself through every ounce of discomfort that this brings up? Because if you do, if you can, you will elevate.
This brings me to a piggybacking on this is an Instagram video that you did with your hairstylist, and you were talking about your receding hairline, right? And what does your other hairstylist or your makeup artist call your hair? He has a word for it that you said. He humanizes the hair. What did he say? I can't. A unit.
A unit.
A unit.
That's like
a
wig.
Exactly. So you're the queen of units, because you can look any way, but none of that. But you don't allow that to. That's not your identity, right? You could be the diva. You could be the sex symbol. You could be everything, and you can be the woman who has a receding hairline, and none of it has a hierarchy. And I think what you're talking about is, and you said this beautifully, we're going to do a little bit of B-roll on some of these videos, because I think that, when we can visualize the experience, it's just so beautiful. But tell me a little bit about coming into that space of acceptance wholeheartedly of who Tina Lifford is, whether she has a fabulous unit or she has her fabulous natural self.
Yeah. Again, there's so much that I am enjoying in this conversation, because the only reason I am in the conversation, not with you, but in the world, is because we owe ourselves, and we owe a better future models for inner health and well-being. And inner health and well-being says that we get our strength and sense of self from our internal self. Whereas we've been taught to get ourselves from the world, which is why we always feel like we're failing, and why it never feels secure, because as long as you know that your well-being is dependent upon something out there, just logically speaking, you don't have control over anything out there, and therefore you are at risk. And so being able to bring your sense of self into yourself is a wonderful playground or gym in which you can exercise your inner
And this is what inner
fitness.
fitness is all about. Do you mind if I segue into telling everyone a little bit about the program that? Because I know did you just finish your 30-day challenge? Or are you still in the 30-day challenge?
We're actually in the 30-day challenge, and this challenge is so beautiful. It is so much fun. We we go online for the community every morning at 7 o'clock Pacific and 10 o'clock Eastern, and there's a workbook that everyone received in the mail, and it's a powerful thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And so and we walk through the days, and then people get to share what their experiences are from the exercise the day before, and we encourage so that they stay on track and continue the full 30 days. And the program that is coming up after the 30 days to a
The Self
thriving
365, right? Is
to
that
a more
Self 365 program?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at you. And Self 365 is powerful in a way that builds that internal self. It gives that space that you were talking about, where one can safely and be also championed and given room to explore and discover self unself-consciously. We have 14 practices. I call them, the 14 practices of inner health and well-being. And these practices, you come together with a small group of people who start off as strangers, but the universe picks them. You wind up in the perfect group for yourself. And what happens over the 14 weeks is nothing short of divine. And it's a very simple program where you come together for an hour a week, and each person, according to the guidelines, shares. There's no advice giving. And it aligns with the Little Book of Big Lies, and then you, based upon what's going on in your life, you choose one of the 14 practices to work with for the upcoming week. And then you come back and you share about what you gained from that, how that situation, how your heart, how your understanding of yourself was attended to through that particular practice. And I always love doing this because, when I talk about the 14 practices, it's something that people can't really imagine because they've never heard of it, right? But healing our lives, growing our lives, and stepping into that next best iteration of ourselves is directly connected to how we interact with ourselves and the things that we give attention to. And so I offer to you, you pick any number between 1 and 14, and I will share with you what one of the practices is.
Okay, 7.
7 is, I release all people from the responsibility of making me happy.
Now, that was no accident.
I release all. Listen, I actually misspoke. Okay. Let me say it again. I release all people and things from the responsibility of making me happy. And the degree to which we unconsciously are making people and things, our jobs, our ring, our purses, trips and shoes, the things that we hand our lives over to, expecting and demanding that they make us happy, burdens us and makes it certain that we cannot get to happiness because there is no thing that can give it to.
So what I'm hearing is that the Self 365 program is integral to all of our lives transforming. You said something, Tina, a little earlier about, you said, you were mindful of how you said it. When you get, you didn't say good coaching, but when you get the right coaching, right? Because who you coach with and the community that you coach within, it matters. It matters because it matters, right? And so what I would love to invite everyone here to do is, first of all, you have to connect with Tina on Instagram, because that in and of itself will change your life. You're going to laugh. You're going to cry. She's like your girlfriend, your mom, your sister, and of course, Aunt Vi. She's auntie. She's all of it. And you get that energy and the love. And I just adore you. I adore you. And I'm so grateful that you came in today. So I want you all to really check out the 365 program, because your life matters, and who you put your life in the hands of matters. And I cannot imagine a better person than you, Tina, of our lives really being in your community in this process of the Self 365. So I do know that it begins early bird. So there's an early bird special that starts March 11th to March 17th. Is that right? Okay,
Yeah,
I have all information over here. We're going to put all of the details, the link, the numbers, all of it inside of the show notes. But before we close out, I would like to ask you a question that I am going to be asking everyone on the podcast. And again, I want to thank you for being my first, because you could not have made it more fun and enjoyable and knowledgeable. And it was a coaching session, and it was love, and it was all the things, as the kids say. But I want to end with everyone answering this question. What is one thing that your younger self made a priority, and that now at this stage of your life, you've realized was never that important?
That's a great question. One thing that my younger self made important that I now know is not a priority. My younger self made fitting in a priority. I was considered an odd child, weird, called a lot of names, and oftentimes I wanted to belong. I wanted to, have my cool cousins like me and want to be around me the way they wanted to be around my sister. I wanted people to, just include me, to look at me and see me, and not see this thing that they called weird, right? And today, I am so happy that I allowed my fingerprint. We all have a unique fingerprint, and that fingerprint lives on every cell. And I'm so happy that I did not listen to or get so enrolled in my younger self's need to be included that I could discover why I was walking to the beat of a different drummer.
I love that. I love that. And with that,
Yeah.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
thank you so much for today. Thank you for bringing us your wisdom, your heart, your compassion, your knowledge, your generosity, your beauty, all of it. Thank you for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to The New 50. And until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep living life to the fullest.
Fantastic. Nice to be here, Naja. Thank you.